Hi, welcome to TXODM Garage. I'm your host, Will. Today is going to be our first episode of Project Restore Revive on this 67 Camaro SS clone. Now, this car was a running and driving car when it was parked in a garage in the year 2000. And it's been buried under a bunch of stuff ever since. I just rescued this car earlier this actually, it is now January 2nd, so I rescued this car at the beginning of last month and brought it down here to hopefully give it a second life. So this car originally was a regular V8 2-speed power glide car, and between 98 and 2000, according to the paperwork, this car was completely redone inside and out to make a rather convincing 350 SS clone. Now, it didn't do everything 100% right on the car, but from 20 feet away, and if you don't know Camaros very well, it's pretty convincing. It fooled me at first. I'd only heard about the car in passing here and there, but never got a chance to really get in and look at it. And all I ever saw, up until we unburied this car, was just the rear quarter panel and a little bit of the gas tank. So now, we're going to be going over this car, getting it on the road, and you're going to be following the whole journey between where it is now to where I kind of want to move it to as kind of a pro touring car. Something that I can drive daily and take road trips in. It's kind of what I want to do with this. Now, because this is a SS clone and not a real SS, I don't have to feel bad about making it what I want. So, I'm going to bring you all over here and we're going to take a look at what all we're going to be starting with right now on episode 1 and in the coming episodes of this project. So a little bit about this car. When I got my hands on this car, there was a couple things that were issues with it. First of all, we never could find the keys at all. So right now, I have the glove box key over at a locksmith. He's trying to make some keys for it so I can get into the trunk, which I don't even know if there's anything in the trunk or not. But the trunk has to be opened up because in order to drop the gas tank to go through the fuel system, I need to be able to get in the trunk. Well, I also have a new ignition cylinder here. However, I don't think I'm going to use this. This is probably going to be going back to O'Reilly's, because if this locksmith is able to make the lock for the glove box and it works to the trunk, then I'm probably going to have to pull the driver's side door panel and get the ignition or the door lock out and take that over as well. The reason is I can't remove the ignition cylinder in the car without a key that goes in it. So if I go ahead and I get a new key for the door made, then I might as well just keep the ignition cylinder that's in there. The other issue is I do have to remove the door panel eventually as well in order to take a look at the window mechanism, because it doesn't go up all the way and it slips. So there's probably some gears in there that's broken. So that's one issue. The other problem that we had is the back drums were so locked up and welded together that when we tried to put this car on the trailer, it couldn't move at all. We couldn't get it on the trailer. The front rolled just fine, but the back will weld it up. So what we got here is we got a whole new brake drum kit for the rear drums to replace those out. So this car can actually have brakes. Now, I'm not gonna know if all of the brakes work until after I do this, because the rear cylinder that goes to the rear brakes is completely dry. So I don't know if there's gonna be any leaks until I get everything hooked up and I bleed the brakes to see if there are any leaks. Next, what we're going to be doing today is spark plug wires. Now, one of my shorts, I was vacuuming out a bunch of rat scat that was all over the engine. Now, luckily, the rats or mice never got inside of the car itself, which is awesome because the interior is gorgeous in this car. So, that's a lucky break. However, they did chew up the spark plug wires, and only the spark plug wires. Why? I don't know. So, we're going to be replacing out the spark plug wires. Next, we're going to be going ahead and replacing the steering wheel. Now, this is just a budget temporary steering wheel that I got off of Amazon. But the reason I'm swapping it out is because that old original GM steering wheel, which isn't original to this car, it's a second gen steering wheel, which is almost the same I had on my 79. It's starting to get nasty, melted, rotting rubber stickiness going on with it. So we're going to be pulling that off and then swapping on this steering wheel for the time being. Now, I think I paid like 27 bucks for the steering wheel. It's done fantastic, it's kind of slick, but it's going to do for the time being. And eventually what we're also going to do with the steering wheel is, because I'm really paranoid about people stealing my cars thanks to bad incident I had with a towing company in Warped Tour in Houston back in about 2012, 2011. This car is eventually also going to be getting a quick detach steering wheel as well, which is going to kind of lend towards that pro touring vibe that I'm working towards. So that's kind of what we're going to be starting out with. Oh, and I forgot. Coolant tank. Now, I live down here on the South Texas coast, and during the summertime, it gets really hot. I mean, heat index is in the 120s. So, temperature is a huge thing that I'm going to be concerned about with this car, especially if I'm wanting to drive it kind of how I want to drive it. So, one of the first things I am going to be doing is I am going to be adding just a overflow tank. That way, the cap on the radiator can actually draw in coolant as well as kick it out. Because right now it just has a tube that squirts straight down into the ground, and then you lose your coolant. At least running a little tank, even a small one like this, which I'm going to upgrade to a bigger one, at least I'll be able to see that there's some coolant in here, and I'll have a little bit of room to kick some coolant into this tank and then suck it back into the radiator. We are going to eventually be replacing that radiator with a 3 or 4 core aluminum radiator as well, but that's going to be a little ways down the road. This kind of stuff is expensive, and I ain't made of money. Now, another thing we are going to be working on is when I remove the battery, I did see beneath the battery pan, the radiator support and the passenger side fender skirt has quite a bit of rust right around where it mounts to the body. And this is likely due to old batteries leaking. Now, I do know for a fact that this rust was there before they did the restoration because the shop painted over the rust. Now, is it that big of an issue? Nah, not right now. However, I do want to make sure that it is taken care of because what's under the hood with this and what I'm planning on doing, this car is going to be under a lot of torquing pressure, and I want to make sure everything is as solid as possible. Now, on the note of the battery, we are going to be taking the battery and relocating it back to the trunk. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is because, one, I want to be able to have a battery cutoff in the trunk. I can, turn it off, kill the battery to the car. Once again, going back to the whole I don't want my car stolen situation. So that's going to be one reason. Also, it's going to clean up the engine bay just a little bit, make it look a little cleaner, nicer. Plus, gives me a good spot to put the coolant tanks and opens up a little bit of room for wiring electronics. I'm going to be adding a pretty much a fuse box up beneath the hood where the battery used to be, kind of inside the fender, and that's going to run all of our auxiliary power stuff that we're going to be adding in the future, such as electric fans, fuel pumps, stuff like that. So we're going to kind of pop open the hood, and we're going to start with these plugs today and get into it. Alright guys, so next we're going to be working on these spark plugs wires, and then also I'm going to pull a couple spark plugs just to take a look and see how they look. Now, I'm going to be going with these 8.2 millimeter Thunderbolts by Taylor. I looked around, and for the price, these had a really good resistance, low resistance for the price. So I went ahead and went with these. I'm kind of wishing I would have went with yellow instead of red, just to be a little bit more, pow in here. But what it is. Red is red. You can't ever go wrong with red on a muscle car. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now, let's just take a little minute here to appreciate living in the modern day when it comes to information on stuff. Now, certain things, it's still kind of hard to find stuff, but back in the day, if you didn't know by heart your firing order, you would have to go get a book, go to the auto parts store, go to a shop, ask somebody who did know. It was a little bit harder to find information. Now you can just look on your phone. But the easy way, and the way I'm going to be doing it, I'm just going to be doing it one wire at a time with what's already going on here. Now, these wires are different lengths, and they do correspond to where on the block that they go. So, I'm going to pull them out, lay them out, and we're going to start from the back to the front, short to long. Now, also before I start on these, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop off all the zip ties that are holding stuff together and take off all of these clips. Now, a handy little tool for popping these clips for, organizing your plug wires is one of these little O-ring tools. It may get O-rings off easy, but they also make getting off these clips quite easier as well. they have that nice flat round duckbill on it. So it's kind of easier to kind of go up inside of stuff like this and not necessarily screw it up. So it's kind of a nice little thing right there. But just a little tip. Now, you can see I got all of them laid out, all 8 of them. However, you may notice I got a 9th one, and that's because this kit comes with a extra wire if you're not running an HDI distributor and you have a coil off your distributor. So this one here would have went from the top of the distributor to the ignition coil using this boot here. However, I don't need it, so I'm going to save it, because you never know, I could use this if I had to replace one of these if something happens. Let's get started here. So on these here, the black tops should be the ones that go up on top of the distributor. So we're going to go ahead and start back here. There we go. So you can see on these old plugs here, actually this one doesn't have any rat shoes on. Oh, it's got a little bit of rat shoe, but I'll find one of the ones that have good rat shoes on it to show you, and we can go from there. But first of all, I'm going to toss that off to the side. Use short cable here, run that down. Top you in place, and then yeah, you can see some of that rat bite marks right there. I was told the reason why they only went after the plug wires, because back in the day, when these probably came out, this type of silicone or something, used soybean oil or something, I don't know. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you all those chew marks. Alright, so the plug wires are back on. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the breather back on and on to the next little project. Okay, so I have the tank mocked in and I have the holes drilled for the mounting. So now I'm going to get it all mounted in and see where we're going here. So on one side I did do a self-tapper simply because it would have been next to impossible to get a wrench inside of over here in order to tighten down a bolt with a nut. I'm only going to hand tighten that one right there. Now, if your car has AC and you're mounting stuff in this spot, you gotta be a little careful because, no, not drop nut, bolt, oh. But my AC lines are right here on the other side of the radiator support. So when I was drilling my hole, I had to make sure to be real careful not to make sure, I didn't hit anything important. Okay, so I had just mixed up the bolts because I pulled these out of my scrap thing. So, you know, they're different thread pitches. So that explains what the situation was there. Okay, so that one's in now. I can just not drop stuff. That'd be fantastic. Ugh. Come on. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and get these two tightened down, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so the tank is all mounted in. All it's left to do is to hook up my hose to the bottom of it, which I'm going to do right now. Ow. I'm gonna cut this hose so it's a little shorter and then hook it on there. Alright, so that hose is on now, and of course, you know, I had to cut a little bit on the nozzle. Now I am gonna be eventually taking off this barb right here and doing an elbow to go straight down so I can then run my hose straight down, but I don't have one with me right now. So let's take the brace here and mount the brace back in place. Seeing how I do not need to have it loose anymore. Alright, and the cap just clears. Alright, so that's going to give just a little bit of extra coolant capacity for right now. Okay, I think the next thing we're going to go take a look at is the steering wheel and see if that's able to be done or if I need to get a puller. Should. There we go. And what do we have going on here? Now, in theory, this key should work for the trunk because... Alright, let's, know the truth.